Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple. It is 5:06 a.m. on July 20th, 2021. The Chronicles of Drunagor Age of Darkness Apocalypse campaign is launching in a few hours, and so I wanted to get one final video in where I cover the remaining updates. There were two, Update 6 and Update 7. I am filming this wearing nothing but a hoodie and my underwear, drinking my coffee, just trying to get this in under the wire. So, let's do this. I'm very excited about this campaign. I'm trying not to wake my kids up, so I'm trying to be a little more quiet than I usually am. But we'll muddle through. So, we've got update number 6 here. Language update, the Eye of the Beast, and more. So the first thing that they show off here is this Apocalypse dice set, which looks pretty awesome. I've never dabbled in custom dice really personally, unless they come, with a campaign like Massive Darkness or something like that. You get like the little kind of frosted dice or whatever. I've never seen anything like this. These look pretty awesome. So I've heard some people questioning the readability of the die because of the eye that's kind of embedded in them, and I think that's probably a valid concern. But these do look really cool, and so I'll be very tempted to pick these up. Moving on, they talk about the language update. They're going to have language packs with all items printed in English, German, and Spanish. This is funny if you watch one of my previous videos, because they just had the flags previously. I kind of wasn't entirely sure what the Spanish flag looked like. It's kind of embarrassing, but they also talk about how they're working on French, Portuguese, Italian, and Polish as well, and that you'll be able to select a language pack during the Pledge Manager. Moving on, they show off again the dice, and here's a image of them being used in gameplay, which is looking very cool. It's going to be an add-on, and it'll be included in the all-in. And they represent the beast. The Lich, the Death Dragon, the War Lion, the Plague Rat, and the Famine Horse. Very cool. So this indicates I have not played through the whole campaign yet. I'm still on mission 2. Although I intend to burn through some more of it this week so that I can review the game. And so I don't know. But this seems to imply that the Undead Lich from the first game is related in some way to the 4 Horsemen, which is very cool. And it comes in a premium tin box that has foam in it so that your minis don't get, busted up, which is cool as well. So here they get into something that's been a little bit controversial, kind of, and that is, they're basically talking about the possibility of offering some kind of payment plan for the game where your all-in pledge costs would be equally divided into 6 payments, so that if you don't have the funds up front to pay for the all-in, you don't necessarily have to miss out. You can take advantage of this payment plan that they're considering and pay it kind of month by month. So the price of the game in general has been kind of a hot topic in the comments and on Board Game Geek and such, and this is them trying to offer some kind of solution to assist with that. Personally, I did a video about the pricing and the, frankly, ridiculously kind of restrained price increase from the first campaign, which was, over 2 years ago. Inflation alone is almost 7% since then. So, and the price change is maybe 10% at the high range. So it's really reasonably priced, I think, for the amount of content that you get. But there have been people who have been saying, and I can understand, run into this myself, where if you're backing the expansion for a game and they're offering the original, that is a big purchase to make all at once, to get like the all-in original and the all-in for the secondary pledge. I've run into this on I ran into this on Tanar's Adventures, and on Levon Rising, the follow-up campaign for Wild Ascent. And I mean, there's just kind of no getting around it. It just sucks if you're coming to it late. You're basically backing two Kickstarters at the same time with those games. So it is expensive, but this is them at least trying to figure out a way to help their backers. I don't know. There's some controversy about, should we be helping people go into debt essentially just to buy a board game? And ultimately, I think it's like a personal decision that each backer needs to make for themselves. Is it, worth the cost or whatever? In my case, I think it is, but I could easily understand somebody seeing, $303 to get just the old stuff, right? And being like, I don't even get everything for this. So I can understand that. But either way, they're ideating on potential solutions, which I think is great, and really speaks to the fact that they're interested in, helping people out. They do not need to do this. This is not something CMON did when they were asking $500 or more for Marvel United X-Men if you wanted the old stuff and the new stuff. There was no discussion about, how do we help people pay for this? They just said, fuck those guys. They'll figure it out, or they won't, and they won't get it. So CGS is not CMON. They're not operating on the same kind of, level in terms of the amount of backers they have and whatnot. But even still, I think it's just like a kind of corporate mindset thing. I don't necessarily think CMON is worried about, big or small, worried about, their backers' ability to pay for their products. They're just taking a much more kind of, business-like stance to it, whereas CGS is at least trying to figure something out. So I think it speaks well to them. There's nothing wrong with CMON. They're a business, and they're running it like a business, so that's fine too. But this is different, and I like seeing things that are different on occasion. And then finally, so the Four Horsemen have been another major sticking point. They're basically, as far as I can tell, there are two camps of people. And just to catch everyone up, the Four Horsemen in the core box for the expansion do not come as miniatures. They come as standees. They haven't shown them anything other than like in a really basic artist render, which I don't think is kind of a finished product. But in general, there's a subset of people who are bemoaning the fact that there are standees in their miniature game, which I get. I don't have any problem with that complaint. I think it's valid. I thought it was odd too when I first saw the box that it came with standees. I said, what the hell is this? And so there's a camp of people who think that the standees in the core box need to be replaced with something, some kind of miniature. Now, I've seen people say, oh, well, what if you just scaled the bosses down to the size of the undead dragon? Then they could get in that box. Okay, listen, if you're asking for what's functionally like free additional miniatures, maybe lower your expectations a little bit. That undead dragon is one of the biggest miniatures I own, and I own thousands of miniatures. That thing is freaking huge. That is not scaling it down. It is, in terms of literally the math, but it's not in the sense of replace the standees with something that is affordable for the consumer and CGS. It's not a middle ground. That is still 4 gigantic miniatures that people are asking for free. So that's a ridiculous request that I don't know what else to say about. There have been other ideas. I posted some ideas myself. What about making like really nice like acrylic standees, like GTG minis have these little plastic standees that are kind of double-sided colored, and they're much nicer looking than your standard kind of cardboard standee. I've heard people say, I think a really good idea, why don't you just sell a small add-on or include a stretch goal for the 4 horsemen unhorsed, so that they're back down to kind of human size. Because, that's the thing, is if you're looking at the miniatures, the actual horsemen, the dudes riding the horses, are quite small. They're the normal hero size, basically. It's the enormous horse that, takes up all the space. So, and then the big, huge kind of custom bases. I think that's a pretty good idea. I think the complaint is valid. And I think it would behoove CGS to come up with some kind of middle ground solution. Because another thing that people are complaining about is just the sheer size of this box, that it's bigger than the other two. And, I think it's hilarious. I don't use Calyx shells, so it doesn't bother me in terms of the size, and I just think it's audacious to make a box this big. But some people are complaining about it. They're saying, even if I wanted those giant miniatures, they're too big. The thing is too big, Are these even, like, playable? Or are they more just, like, display pieces? So I think these are all, it's an interesting discussion, and obviously, like I said, talking about right up here, when they're talking about a payment plan potentially for their game, which they are under no obligation to do at all, I think they're probably thinking through some options on this. I don't have any inside content or inside knowledge of that, but it would just make sense that they would be also ideating on, a fair number of people who are voicing complaints about the cost of the Apocalypse Minis add-on and just like the size of it. I also think they would be well served to put out something that shows those things in action, particularly the dragon. I think the other 3 they're big, but they're not insane. The dragon is insanely huge, and so there are just like questions people have about like how the hell does this even fit on the tiles? Does it move around with the giant building on it? That seems kind of like narrative breaking. So I think they would be well served to put out some gameplay video with that as well. But the campaign hasn't even started yet, so let's maybe give them the campaign to figure this stuff out before we start trying to castigate them for what ultimately is their artistic vision for the game. They want these giant miniatures. I want them too. Some people don't, and if it's that big of a deal, then CGS could consider some of the options we've discussed. But ultimately, this is what they envisioned. So I'm glad to see them not kind of immediately trash their vision just to get an extra 200 backers or whatever. So, but we'll see what happens with that. And then they did a poll. So next they talk about the 48-hour all-in, which is this really cool looking metallic coin for the initiative tracker. I think this looks really cool. I'm happy to get this. So make sure you're back within the first 48 hours. Even if you don't see, yeah, and they mention it here, even there are pledges that aren't available yet because they are going to be unlocking things as they go along and adding, expansions and such. So they can't show you a true all-in for the new campaign until the end of the campaign, because otherwise they'd have to reveal everything up front, and they don't want to do that. So what they're calling out here is, and I'll just kind of, reiterate, if you want this coin, make sure you back the game within the first 48 hours. You can always, and then change your pledge when the new pledge levels get increased. That's what I'll be doing. So I'll back like the Apocalypse pledge, and then when the all-in gets announced, I'll upgrade to that, and you'll still get the coin even if you change your pledge during the thing. You just have to have a pledge in place within this 48 hours. So bear that in mind. And then here they did a poll about the 4 Horsemen and the box size in particular. So they're basically asking, should we leave it as is and have this one giant miniature, or should we make the dragon so that he kind of splits apart, like the wings come off or whatever? And overwhelmingly people are calling for just leave it as it is. I agree. I hate dragons that have those stupid wings that you have to stick in. You end up having to glue them in most of the time anyways to really make them playable, and so I'd rather it just be one giant piece. So that's my thoughts on that. So that's update 6, and man alive, these freaking dice are incredible. There's no getting around that. So here we get into some more interesting stuff. So if you've watched any of my Drunagor content, you will know that one of my main complaints is just the storage. They took a really nice swing at it in the original campaign in terms of the game trays and whatnot, but it was ultimately a swing and a miss, I think. Because there's just so much crap in that box, honestly, and the number of cards and the doors are a really weird organizational challenge, and stuff like the darkness tiles, it just didn't all work out. And so what they're doing in update 7 is they're previewing the initial stretch goals that'll be unlocked during the campaign. So they're giving us a sneak preview of the very first stretch goal, and they're showing us storage for all the cards from all expansions, the adventure packs, and the core boxes. And this tray is going to come inside the Apocalypse Adventures box. So, and it comes with, it looks like dividers, and then it looks like there's some space for a few of the miniatures as well. So this is kind of funny because I did a video about how I organize this game, and I don't know that this would undo that necessarily, but it might contribute to it at least. I don't know if they showed here. If you go back to the main page, you can see that they're considering, or they're planning on a similar organizing tray for the doors as well, which is another thing that I organized kind of custom. So between the two of these, I think these are very cool. The only thing that concerns me is they seem to be deliberately avoiding the use of the term game trays. It just says a new tray. All of the trays in the original game were actually like branded game trays. And if you don't think there's a difference between that and other kind of non-branded game trays, you are wrong. Go buy a Kingdom Rush and see the difference between like kind of your cheapo basic, storage trays and the true game trays. So hopefully that's just an oversight and these are actual game trays. Maybe I'll even ping them and ask. I don't know. I'm sure they're very busy right now. But anyways, they're considering more storage solutions for the core box, which can only be good, even if it doesn't affect the way I personally store the game. A lot of people don't want to go buy a tool storage box for their board games, and they want it to take up as little space as possible, and I get that. That's not a problem that I personally have, but there are people out there who do. So more power to them to try and figure out how to organize this massive game. They talk next about the tabletop simulator demo. Apparently, CGS created the original TTS demo, and then Snoggle 1981, Andreas Gabel, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. This guy is all over the Discord, and apparently he took that demo and kind of took it to the next level. I haven't gotten a chance to play the new demo yet, but I have seen people play it, and it does look considerably slicker. It's got kind of like the Gloomhaven TTS implementation, if you've played that, where it kind of is doing some setup for you, and there are kind of contextual buttons you can click that will load in objects and stuff. It looks really slick. I'm really looking forward to playing it, and I intend to play it during the campaign. And I already have one viewer who's indicated an interest in playing it and with me, and so I'll be reaching out to him soon. So, but I strongly recommend, if you haven't played this game and you want to get a sense of how it plays, get Tabletop Simulator. It really does a good job of showing you exactly what the game will play like, and you'll get a much better sense of if you want to spend $300 or $600 on this game. I was personally a little bit intimidated by TTS at first. It seemed wonky and kind of, clunky and difficult to use, but it really only takes like half an hour of messing around and navigating and learning how to move things, how to resize things and move them around before you get pretty proficient with it. And once you do, those skills transfer across like all games basically. So if you haven't played this game, take the time, try it out in Tabletop Simulator. It'll really help inform your purchase. And more, I'm starting to think that this needs to be expected. This should be a part of every campaign. I was really pissed to see that there's some kind of Tabletop Simulator demo for both Zombicide, Undead and Alive, and Marvel United X-Men, but they didn't release them to backers. They just released them to Quackalope, basically, or whoever it was. Stupid horseshit, frankly. Put it on to let people play your game. If your game's good enough for people to spend $300 on, it's good enough for you to put the time into demoing it, and obviously CGS feels that their game will stand up to the kind of, the rigor of review, and so it is available, and I strongly suggest checking it out. And again, thanks to Snoggle 1981 for making it look pretty badass, because it does look really nice. Let's see, and there's a link to the TTS demo right here in the update. They've got they even created a little video guide for how to use it, which is also really, really cool. And I appreciate the hell out of this. I haven't watched it yet, but I will, because it will make it easier to to get it up and running on TTS. And then finally, they're talking about they've got another sample of the Undead King from Foreteller. So that's basically it. So this campaign is launching in like 3 hours, and I'm very excited. I plan on backing all in. Basically, I always want to back all in, and then when it comes time, to make that purchase, I hesitate and I start hedging, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just get this one, and I'm not doing that this time. I'm getting all this crap because it really does look cool. Oh, and I don't know that we've talked about this, or I haven't shown it, but I got a quote on the GameFound campaign for this, and I'm so excited about this. This is awesome. They had some really big quotes on here from everybody, and then they had to apparently trim them down, but they captured the part that I really wanted to have come across, and which I haven't heard a lot of other people mention, which is that this game feels like World of Warcraft to me, in the way that characters activate and stuff, because there's functionally like a cooldown system. When you use a cube for an ability, that ability is on cooldown until you rest and get your cubes back. So it's really cool. And so I got a quote on here, so I'm super excited about that. I totally forgot that had even happened. And then beyond that, it's just a couple more hours. If you're interested, like I said, make sure you back before the campaign starts, so that, or right when the campaign starts, so that you get the free 48-hour thing. You still have time to get the free Fallen Sister if you haven't done that yet by following the campaign. If you're going to back it, and you're going to back it early, you might as well get everything. And other than that, I intend to keep pumping out the Drunagor content this week. Will be continuing my Chapter 2 playthrough. I've got a review of the hero trays coming today, and I intend on filming myself playing Tabletop Simulator, and I'll be doing a full kind of review. It'll be one of my first real board game reviews, so I have to think through a little bit how I want to approach it, if I want it to be casual or if I want it to be kind of more structured, and have an outline and so on. But that'll be coming. Certainly it'll come before the end of the campaign, because that's when it'll be of the most value to you, my viewers. So keep an eye out for all that good stuff, and I will talk to you later.